Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Z. I'm a clinical psychologist specializing in transgender care. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to share with you how soon once you start feminizing hormones and why your sexuality may change. Now keep in mind, sexuality as you go along through transition does not change for everybody. Everybody is very, very different. Just because you're going through gender transition also does not mean your sexuality is going to change. Again, everybody is very, very different. However, for a lot of individuals, their sexual preferences does change. And for other individuals, it can change numerous different ways. For a lot of trans women identified people, who were initially in a more heterosexual relationship prior to transition, in other words, in relationship with women, their sexuality may either remain or may actually change, where once it does change, they may prefer male sexual partners, or they may become more fluid and lean toward being bisexual, or even pansexual or asexual. There is numerous ways beyond just heteronormative concepts of sexuality that does change for individuals. A lot of people now tend to presume that once you start feminizing hormone therapy, if your sexuality does change, in this video we're talking about for people for whom it does change, when sexuality does change, people attribute the change primarily to hormones. Now, I personally, this is just my opinion, thinks that something greater going on than just hormones changing your sexual orientation. I don't think hormones are responsible, in my opinion, for changing your sexual orientation. If you think that hormones are responsible, that is a valid view, valid opinion. That has not been my experience. But if you think that is something that actually holds true for you, by all means, again, there's no one way of looking at things. There's multitude of ways of looking at things. So how soon is it that I tend to see for trans women to start experiencing changes in their sexuality, and why, most importantly, why, in my opinion, does this happen? Oftentimes I see sexuality for people starting to shift during the point in gender transition when trans women make through this threshold, this part of transition where you go from early stages of transition to a place in transition when you see yourself for the first time, when you see that feminine you for the first time, when you are starting to not only see yourself for the first time, but you're also starting to you're starting to build up those nuggets of confidence because you are seeing you, so you know it's possible. And when the confidence comes up, something happens to women. What happens to women, in my experience, is as their confidence awakens, their sense of self-love and self-worth starts to waken up. With that confidence, also a sense of, oh, I am attractive, oh, I'm beautiful, starts to wake up. When those things start to wake up, which is a beautiful part of gender transition, what I see initially is a lot of trans women start to have a desire. It's either a desire or it's either a pull toward acknowledgement that you want to be seen and desired by opposite gender. You want to be seen and desired as attractive, as beautiful, and most importantly, primarily as women in your own right by men. Part of this initial shift has less to do with sexuality, because by this point, I see a lot of trans women don't yet have any sexual desire to be sexually intimate or close with men. But what I see is it's more being whole through this male gaze as a way of feeling validated in your feminine identity. It is as if a man out there compliments me, finds me beautiful, finds me desirable, wants to ask me out on a date, He is acknowledging my womanhood. He's acknowledging my femininity. He is seeing me through the lens of my female identity. So initially, it starts off as this, again, a pull toward being seen through that lens, which is nothing wrong with that, by the way, right? We all want to be seen through a particular lens. Then slowly, it starts shifting for some people. For those people specifically for whom their sexual orientation changes from being attracted to women to then being attracted to men, it starts to shift a little bit. And for a lot of people, there is almost always a resistance. I can even go back and say that that initial pull to be seen through the male gaze is part of that resistance where you're just telling yourself, I just want to be validated, but deep down something else is going on, some deeper desires that you're not acknowledging going on about your wants and needs of being intimate with a man. And the reason why there is a resistance is because for a lot of trans women, it is very difficult um, to start awaken and acknowledge the shift in their sexuality. And the reason why it is difficult to acknowledge and accept the shift in sexuality is because a lot of trans women, in my experience, don't want to be perceived, seen, or described as gay because you're not gay. You're not gay. And as a result, that creates a block that puts up a wall. If a trans woman is sexually or intimately or in any way attracted toward men, that just, at least in our current today, a polarizing language makes that person a straight woman, heteronormative. So it doesn't make you gay. If you are attracted to women, well, then by label definitions, you identify as a lesbian. I know that for our society, somehow that's a very difficult concept to grasp, right? And I think part of societal challenges to grasp this concept that trans woman who is attracted to men is not gay. Trans woman who is attracted to men is a straight woman. What creates also defensiveness and resistance in so many trans women to wake up and to accept and to embrace and to embody their sexual awakening. So initially, it starts off really slowly for a lot of trans women as a desire to be validated through the lens. And then it starts to shift. And the way it starts to shift, and it's almost always happens in this middle phase of gender transition, when you're starting to also waken up to your own, not to your own, how should I phrase it? It's not that you're starting to wake up to your own, you're starting to wake up to a connection to yourself as a sexual woman, connection to yourself as a woman with your own sexuality, connection to yourself as a woman that has her own sexual energy, which is a beautiful, again, thing to wake up to. It is during this phase that you're also starting to wake up to exploring and navigating your sexual landscape differently. I seldom, if ever, see sexuality fluctuating or changes in the beginning of gender transition, especially if you are still in a relationship. It is not going to fluctuate or less likely to fluctuate because you're still holding up to that relationship, and therefore you're holding up to that sexual designation that you have. Now, when a person starts to break through that resistance, starts to acknowledge to themselves that your sexuality is changing, that if you're sexually attracted, especially to primarily to men, that's totally fine, totally natural, doesn't make you gay by any means. That's when other possibility and doors open into navigating the world of dating and relationship, right? Why does this happen? Like I said earlier, a lot of people have an idea, and again, I'm not going to disagree with it because anything is possible. That it happens because of feminizing hormones. Well, you know what? Feminizing hormones don't make, for everybody out there, for any person out there, let me phrase it this way. I'm trying so hard to stay away from labels. For anybody out there who is has estrogen raging through their bloodstreams, not every person who has estrogen as their primary hormone is attracted to opposite sex, opposite gender. There's a lot of individuals out there who have estrogen raging through their bodies who are identifying as asexual or pansexual, who are um, might be only attracted to women or might be only attracted to men or attracted to trans people, you name it. And so this is probably why this explanation that, oh, it's a feminizing hormone that make you flip your sexuality doesn't sit right with me, because if that was the case, we would see individuals with feminizing hormone to have a pretty consistent uh, type of sexuality, but that is just not true. What I think is happening, and I talked about this prior in my other videos, what I believe is happening and what I personally witness happening is that your sexuality, your more authentic sexuality that is clearly more aligned to your more authentic sense of self, more authentic gender identities that you are right now blossoming into, that part of sexuality was dormant, was in a state of dormancy. Think about like volcano. When volcano stays in a state of dormancy, it is essentially asleep. And the reason why your sexuality is in a state of dormancy is because there's no way your sexuality is going to be in a position to experience itself if that sexuality is, if your sexual orientation is also tied to your core gender identity. Gender and sexuality, sure, they're different, but remember at the same time, they're kind of linked in a sense that um, at least in a sense how we label things, right? So if you are living a life and you haven't yet started a new authentic gender path, and if you are living in your assigned gender and you're not comfortable with it, and you're navigating your life through male identity and through male landscape and through male lens, your female sexuality is not going to be awakened. There's no way for it to be awakened because you're not experiencing the world and relationships in the world, and you're most importantly not experiencing wholly yourself in relationship to your authentic woman identity. For that reason, you're not aware of it. The same way some people are not even aware about their gender dysphoria until they become aware of it. And so sexuality remains dormant because you're not encompassing yourself yet. When you're stepping into your more authentic self in regard to your gender identity, things in you shift, right? Sure, a lot of things about you remain the same, but there's tremendous amount of shifts that is also going on. Because when you are shifting your relationship to your gender identity, you're also shifting a lot of internal blueprints within yourself. And for a lot of people, one of them is their sexuality. And that's how people start to waken up to their sexual, newly found identity. Not for all. Some people find out that their sexuality is very stable and fixed, that when they were living their assigned gender, they were attracted to women. And when they do transition, they're still very much attracted to women. A lot of people find that their sexuality changes 360 or just takes a different turn, or they were sexual, but now they find themselves asexual. We're complex beings. I don't know why it is so challenging for some people to see and to realize that as we change, as we evolve, things within us also change and evolve, and that ongoing fluidity within ourselves, within our psychology, and within our predispositions is innate in us as human beings. We all go through the cycles of change. And cycles of change always bring new things to us. I mean, this is why as we age, we'll look different, we experience life different. So if we accept changes as we age, why don't we accept changes as we go through self-discovery of ourselves, in this case, gender and sexuality? And so this is what I believe. I believe is that you're only able to waken up to your authentic aspects of sexuality and to experience yourself when you're also now being in a more aligned relationship to your gender. Because for a lot of people prior to transition, your sexual life is what I would call performative life. For a lot of people, they had to put on a performance and a role. Uh, in this case, male-dominated role. It never was comfortable or was something that felt true to individuals. A lot of people also, let's not forget, because of the nature of dysphoria, have a tendency to dissociate. And most often, dissociation does happen during intimacy because people are vulnerable, they're naked, they're exposed. And when people are exposed, they have to confront their physicality. And physicality or discomfort with physicality is it's almost it's nucleus, right, for gender dysphoria. And so for that reason, how are you supposed to even explore or be in touch with your sexuality when during intimate encounters, for a lot of people, due to also dissociation, they were doing this push, they were pushing this part of themselves away. So it makes complete sense that as people start transitioning and as they get to the midpoint when they start cultivating confidence and self-belief in themselves and see themselves and start reawakening to themselves as sexual beings, that sexuality is a dormant volcano starts to erupt. And when it starts to erupt, it is scary, essentially. That's why a lot of people put up resistance. But as you open up and as you allow yourself to be receptive to what this volcano is trying to tell you, there is a lot of things in there that only going to lead you to feel much more happier because it's much more in attunement with who you actually are as an individual. So this is why, and this is when, and how soon sexuality does fluctuate, in my opinion, and this is why it tends to happen. Comment below, let me know, when did you feel that your sexuality was changing? Did you also feel like there was a resistance and fear of being seen as gay when clearly you're not gay? Comment below, let me know. Love reading all of your comments, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye.